Hey, how's it going? I was hiking with a friend yesterday, my guy friend, and there was a couple people that were supposed to go. I think there was like 3 or 4 people that were supposed to go, and it was a monster hike. It was almost a full 13 miles and 3,700 feet elevation. So, yeah, it was a big one, and it's a pretty popular hike in the area where I live. So a few more people were supposed to come, and they all bailed, so it was just him and I. And we were talking shop. You know, you're hiking for a long time. We actually did it in 6 hours. We made great time, but we were talking about relationships. You know, he's got some stuff going on in his personal life, and he knows a few things about me. And so we talked about a lot about life, but a lot about interpersonal relationships, which is something that I'm very passionate about. I love to talk about, because I think that it's the key to a lot of things. We know now that one of the most preventative factors in health and wellness, and the key to living a long life, so longevity, and even brain health, you know, neuroscience research, a lot of the data is pointing towards connection and having really good, solid friendships. And I think we've moved so far away from it takes a village, so it kind of innately was like that back in the yesteryears, as I often discuss. And then we became a very individualized country, because I feel like America is more like this than European countries, just because of the friends that I have out there in Europe and the traveling that I've done. I'm not saying that it doesn't exist in Europe, but I don't think it's as pervasive as American culture. That's more me. And then we've even seen this generationally speaking, from even my parents' generation. You know, my dad's in his late 70s, and then my grandparents' generation. I feel like we're much more community focused. I even watched my mom, like, we were raised by a lot of other elders, female elders in the family. And, you know, gone are those days. I mean, there's so many single family households, or if you're married, both people are working. And if you don't have family to help watch the kids and raise the kids, then they're going to daycare to total strangers. And, you know, that's, I'm sure, extremely difficult, especially for the mom. And we are seeing some repercussions of that. Again, this isn't to guilt anybody. You have to do what you have to do. You know, you have to work and make money. But we are seeing some things get lost in translation, because those kids pick up a lot of other behaviors and habits, and parents have no control over that. Of course, you do the best you can at home to teach morals and values, etc. But so relationships are really important. They're really important for a whole host of things. And although I do feel that most of us are meant to be in monogamous relationships, I do think that there are people who do better either remaining single and playing the field, or I'm not a fan of polyamory, but I do know of people that it has seemingly worked really well for. The rationale is, some of the latest research that it just kind of came to my attention, it happened to be today, was that it seems to be younger men that are much more apt to be attracted to polyamory than older men. And I don't think that needs an explanation. Libido is much higher. it's much more enthralling and alluring to play the field and take on multiple partners. And, you know, I think I've touched on all this before, but one thing that I said to my friends while we were hiking, and he just thought that this was like such a profound thing, was if it's not a yes, it's a no. And this is something that I am kind of like living and dying by now in my life. And that's with friends, it's with business endeavors, it's with jobs and employers and interpersonal relationships. If it's not a yes, it's a no. So if somebody is blowing me off, if I'm interested in somebody and they're blowing me off, it's a no. You know, I will not allow myself to be kept in limbo. People will keep you hanging. People will drag you through the mud. They'll give you mixed signals. They'll run hot and cold. There's way too much ambivalence out there in the world. This is even with friendships where there's so much lack of reciprocation, and that's such an important and vital part of your interpersonal relationships. In all of them, there should be reciprocity, always. It's not always better to give than to receive. It is a reciprocal exchange. You can't always be the giver. It's just, you're going to get depleted. You're going to get burnt out. You're going to resent that person. You're going to resent the relationship. And you're not setting yourself up for success. And so he's in a situation where he feels like he's kind of in limbo. And sometimes I say things and I don't realize the impact that it's going to have, because to me, that has been in my energy field for years now. And I'm just starting to really hit the gas pedal with that whole concept of it's not a yes, it's a no. So one of the stories I shared with him was, and the whole point of me sharing all of this is that I opened his eyes to that, but he really opened my eyes to something on this hike. And so this is why I sometimes love these one-on-one hikes where one person just ends up showing up, because you get so much more out of it, because you're able to connect in more deeply and intimately, because you're not concerned about what you're saying out loud, who's overhearing you, etc. And we were talking about relationships, and so I was telling him some of my dating stories, and not so much heartbreak stories, but just dating stories, or just meeting guys and wanting to be friends, because I think friendship first is such a great idea, and just wanting to be friends. And I do really well being friends with men. I actually have better relationships with men most of the time than women. And that gets very tricky. My friend and I talked about this too, like, can men and women really be friends? I can very much just be a friend. I do think oftentimes one person ends up having feelings for the other person and then hoping that they're gonna change their mind. But I met a guy in the winter, and he ended up being my one and only, like my friend yesterday, and we hadn't known each other at all. And I think he realized that he was going to be the only one. And he was like, we don't have to go. I can't remember. He might have been concerned. He might have felt awkward, or he might have been concerned that I would feel awkward or uncomfortable or not safe because, I'm a woman hiking with a strange guy. But I always do my thing and send my kids all the information. And we ended up hiking together, and then we got lost, or I don't know, maybe I screwed up the directions, and we ended up on this even better hike. Like, we couldn't have planned it better. And it was a kick-ass hike. It was super friggin' hard. And he had a bum knee from a mountain biking injury. So I felt bad. Like, I felt really bad. I hate when people are in pain. And again, we had this nice, deep, intimate conversation, because it's easy to connect with people when you're out there and it's just the two of you. And when we got to the summit, it was like a winter wonderland, and everything was snow capped. And it was just, we met a couple up there and they were lovely. And we got along really well. And I was new to the area and I really didn't want to move to Asheville. And I just wanted to be his friend. And I said that to him. Like, we talked a lot about relationships. He was going through a divorce or just coming out of a divorce. And when we got back to my place, because we took his truck, so he just came to my place. I was going to drive, but then I asked him to drive. And I ran and I got him a bottle of arnica, homeopathic pellets for his knee. And he gave me a big hug. And he was like, I enjoyed my time with you. Like, let's stay in touch. And again, I very much presented this as I'm just looking for friendship. I'm looking to meet people and hang out. He's a native. He loved music. He was, into movement, and we had a lot in common. And so we were messaging on Messenger, and I was like, why are we messaging on Messenger? And I gave him my cell number and he didn't text me. And then I think I might even have said, like, why are you not texting me? And I didn't really get an answer. And he went from answering me to super hot and cold. And then days would go by and it was very sporadic and intermittent. And I was like, this is so stupid. I'm not going to continually be the one to reach out. I don't know what's happening here. I, indicated that I just was looking to make friends. And so I was very direct and I was like, I don't know what's going on, but I'm just going to leave you alone because you don't really seem to want to communicate with me anymore. And that's fine. But I just, I just wish you would be honest. Like, I don't know what's happening. And his response was, don't be sad, which I felt was extremely fucking arrogant, to be quite frank, and egoic. Don't be sad. I mean, what the fuck is that? What kind of response is that? After our conversation, and I didn't give him a bottle of arnica so he would be nice to me, but I wasn't an asshole, and I really wanted his knee to feel better. And that's a lot of the messaging I was doing, like, how is your knee? He was going for injections, like, how did the appointment go, whatever. This is the same way I would treat my girlfriends, essentially. So he said, don't be sad. And I was like, I don't even think I told him off. I was just kind of like, don't be sad. Like, what kind of response is that? And I was like, all right, good luck with that, or whatever I said. I don't know. I might have been flippant. I don't really think I was. I actually tried to make a point to be as, like, kind as I could, but I blocked him. I was like, I don't want anything to do with this. And then he showed up at one of my next hikes, and there was a bigger group and wanted to be like my best friend. And I was like, I don't know what this guy is doing, and I don't know what he expects from me. And if he expects me to be nice to him, after that, he could have just grabbed me aside and had been like, I was an asshole. I was an idiot. That was like the stupidest response I could have given you. I don't know why I said that. This is what's going on. This is why I've been the way that I've been, because I knew it wasn't in my head, and I knew that there was something, but I wasn't getting the truth. So he was super weird. And I did my best to ignore him the whole hike and not really indulge. I actually asked him to be my sweep, which is a person that's an advanced hiker, which he is, to stay in the back. And, I kind of asked him to do that just to create 6 degrees of separation. And then everybody wanted to go to a brewery, and I don't drink, but I was like, okay, I'll go, but I really didn't want to because I wanted to get away from the situation. We go to the brewery, and there was a sweet woman who also went through a divorce, and she had kids, and she was like a mental health professional. So her and I got along really well, and he was getting along well with her, and he was in line, and they were like getting their food together. But I felt like he was almost like being flirty with her. And I'm like, what does he do? I didn't understand what was happening. I'm like, this is dumb as shit. I have no idea what's going on here, but this is so immature and I just don't do this. I don't play these games. I don't do this to people. This is not my language. I don't speak this language. So they go in to get their food. You had like beepers and they had put their order on the same ticket. So they went in, we were outside to get their food. And I had said on the hike, I might go for a second hike. I wasn't going to go to the brewery. I was just going to go for a second solo hike. And I was like, you know what, guys, I'm just going to go for another hike by myself. Thank you so much for coming. I hope to see you again. And I wound up leaving. And I blocked him, so I never talked to him again. And he did try to like find backdoor ways to communicate with me. And then I end up eventually unblocking him because he was in hiking groups that I was running. And I was like, you know what, Carrie, this isn't the way to handle it either. Although he knew how I felt. You know, I told him like, goodbye, I'm not dealing with this in my last message to him. So I unblock him. And then recently he messages me, Facebook Messenger. And he's like, hey girl, would love to see you and hang out this weekend. And there was a link and I couldn't access the link. And I'm like, I can't access the link. And it was his personal Facebook page and it was his birthday weekend and they were doing him and his friends were doing all these things. And he had it like all laid out. And he's like, oh, we're not Facebook friends? I'm like, you have to know we're not Facebook friends. How do you not know that? I was like, no, we're not Facebook friends. So he friend requested me, and then I was like, well, I have a really big hike on Sunday. I work on Saturday. I don't know if I'll be able to make it. I'll see what happens. And I didn't do the big hike on Sunday, but I still hiked on Sunday. And all my jobs are super forward facing. So I like time alone. I need time alone. And I kind of just wanted to chill, and I was feeling really tired. And honestly, a part of me was like, I'm not running to this guy who didn't make me feel good and didn't really leave a good impression of himself. And it really left a bad taste in my mouth. Now, I will say when he messaged me, he's like, we're cool, right? Like when I responded and I was like, no, we're not friends on Facebook. He's like, well, we're cool, right? And that's, you know, when I went more into it, I was like, yeah, we're cool, but I was really disappointed with like how you behaved and the things that you said to me. And then he gave me his explanation, which was legit, which I don't know why he just didn't do from the beginning, that he was going through a lot and he didn't want to lead me on. But here's the thing, I never told him I was into him and I wanted to date him. So what my friend told me yesterday on the hike as a guy is that most guys think that when a woman is really nice to him, they automatically assume that the woman is into him and like wants to fuck him or wants to date him or wants to get with him or whatever. Now, my brain doesn't work that way completely, so I wouldn't have thought that. And my friend was like, you know, women are not always nice to men. So when they are, and he's like, and I was like, did I do something that I don't realize I did? And he's like, not intentionally, no. He's like, but he probably thought you were into him. But I never indicated that. So he didn't say I didn't have time for a friendship with you. He was like, I didn't want to lead you on. I had a lot going on, whatever. So we're still friends on Facebook. I didn't go to that event. I haven't heard from him since then, which is fine. I did message him the next day on his real birthday and wished him a happy birthday and, you know, told him to enjoy time with his family, whatever. But yeah, this is interesting. Is this a real thing? Am I just like super naive and ignorant? Maybe women make this assumption too, like, oh, that guy was so nice to me, he must be so into me. I think I have done that before with a guy and I assumed he was into me and he wasn't. which was fine because I wasn't into him either, but I thought he was being so insanely kind to me because he was into me, but he was just being kind. But this is like, I really want to have an engaging, mature conversation about this because I am a very friendly person and I go over and above and beyond to be warm and friendly because I feel like the world needs more of that, not less. So maybe this is something that I should think about moving forward and not giving the wrong impression. But then that kind of pisses me off because then it's like, I just want to be able to be me. And I feel like it's on the other person. Like, why would you make those assumptions? It's better to just say like, hey, I don't know if you really mean it that you just want to be friends, but if you're interested in me, I just want you to know that I'm just at a point in my life. Like that probably would have been a better way to handle it on his end, which I understand is super awkward. But this is really, really a fascinating thing to me because I wouldn't think that a guy would automatically assume that a woman was into him just because, she's being nice and like, is like, hey, like, let's hang out. Let's do something. And I use the word friend, I want to drive that point home. I was very specific in my language while we were hiking. And then back to the kind of like truth bomb that I spewed on the hike. I think it's really important. I think it's one of the most valuable things that I have heard in the last couple of years is that if it's not a yes, it's a no. And it's so funny. And that's another reason why I shared the story about the other guy. That kind of blew me off because it was very easy for me. He just made it easy. It was like, well, if it's not a yes, it's a no. Like this guy, why would I even want a friend like that in my life who can't even be authentic and real and honest and upfront? I mean, there were so many other ways that he could have went about ceasing communication with me. If that's what he really wanted, and clearly that's what he wanted. And I do this with everything in life. If I'm being mistreated at work and I'm going to the boss, and this happened recently, and I'm going to the big boss and I'm saying, hey, this is what's happening. This is how it's impacting me. This is how it's impacting the team. This is how it's impacting morale. And nothing is being done about it, then I'm going to go where I grow. That's not the environment I want to be in. He gave me the yes, but he didn't follow through. And in friendships, same thing. If it's not a yes, it's a no. If you can't show up for me and you cannot reciprocate friendship in a mature and honest and authentic way, then it's a no. And this is the best dating advice that I can give to anybody because it's not easy out there, and I'm not actively looking to date. But when you're on those apps and you're meeting people, any type of hot and cold behavior, any type of ambivalence, any type of wishy-washy, your job is not to convince somebody to see your value and want to be with you. It's not your job. If they don't see your inherent value, it's a no. They're not for you. There is no begging. There is no pleading. No. Just let it go. There's somebody else out there for you. The yes is there. The yes is waiting for you. It's there. It's out there. If you want to remain in anger and you want to whine and complain about women and men and how fucked the dating scene is, and you have nothing positive or optimistic to say, you're probably just going to remain single and alone. And that might be what you want, which is totally fine. Totally fine. If that's what you really want. But I suspect that a lot of people out there running around claiming that they are so empowered and so happy being single, deep down inside are really lonely. Y'all, we have an enormous loneliness pandemic right now. It's huge, huge. It's partially why our health and wellness is tanking. It's partially why addiction has increased exponentially. It's partially why the suicide rates have tripled to quadrupled in the last few years. I think we are starved for authenticity. We are starved for real connection. Connection is protection. And that's why it is imperative that you surround yourself by people who truly support you, love you, and have your back. So if it is not a yes, it is a no. And be patient and wait for that yes. And I would love to hear from you, especially if you're a man, in the comments. Am I that ignorant that I think that being kind to a guy is not an indicator of being interested or desirable of that person? I feel like friendship is a great start, and then you get to know somebody and then you see if there's something there. And that's kind of how I've been going about things. But now I'm rethinking all of my warm and friendliness because I don't want to give the wrong impression and, take the chance of that creating any poor assumptions or uncomfortability or awkwardness. But I also feel like that's on the other person because they're generating the assumption and not just investigating and asking the right questions. But let me know your thoughts because I am so curious about what you have to say about that. Love ya.